I like to fix all these things na electrical. That is my passion. I want to build my own to able to looking in the future what's the technology roadmap. Whatever economic status of your life, you should have the faster, stable access to the internet. It's a digital rights to individual Filipino. Yan ang pangarap ko mangyari.
Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program, presidential aspirants deny they are into drugs after President Duterte made a controversial allegation. They instead challenged the president to file charges. Business leaders appeal to the government, allow economic frontliners to get COVID-19 booster shots, but the health department says not so fast. And today is all about 30 as British singer-songwriter Adele drops her new album after more than 5 years. Well, President Duterte claims that among the presidential hopefuls, there is a drug user. While Malacanang says it's up to Mr. Duterte if he'll name the aspirant, some say the president should do more than just gossip. Our Trisha Terada has details.
The chief executive dropped another controversial allegation. This time it's against a contender in the 2022 elections. President Rodrigo Duterte claims a presidential aspirant is taking cocaine. The president did not directly identify the aspirant but hints that he comes from a rich family.
There's even a presidential candidate na nag-cocaine. May kandidato tayo na nagko-cocaine yan. Yung mga anak ng mga mayaman. Kaya ako nagtaka ako, anong nagawa yung tao niya? I'm just asking. What contribution has he made para sa Pilipinas? And he is a very weak leader, ang karakter niya. Except for the name. Pero ang tatay, pero siya, anong ginawa niya? He may twin hands down. Okay. If that is what the Filipino wants, go ahead.
Attorney Vic Rodriguez, the lawyer of Bongbong Marcos, told a radio interview that their camp does not feel they're being alluded to. Vice President Leni Robredo and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno also denied taking illegal drugs. Both of them, along with fellow aspirant Senators Bongo and Manny Pacquiao, favor undergoing drug tests.
When do you want? Publicly? Yeah, why not? Kasi if a president will fight against drugs, no, as a matter of policy, then dapat talaga na kami rin. No? Ako, I don't mind.
Another presidential hopeful, Caliodi de Guzman, dares President Duterte to have the cocaine-using aspirant arrested. He also says the president must know the aspirant supplier. Robredo also urges the government to file charges if there's evidence.
Kung merong ebidensya, kailangan ilabas. Hindi dapat ito dinadaan sa ganitong paraan. Yung sa akin, I am sure yung presidente merong access sa maraming information na lahat tayo walang access. So, siya yung makakasagot kung ano yung mga pruweba tungkol dito.
It's unclear for now whether the government is investigating the presidential aspirant and his group, but Malacanang assures it's being fair.
Pagdating kasi sa droga, medyo very technical, no, ang nasa batas, at kailangan sundin natin lahat ng mga proseso at procedures pagdating po sa in any investigation and even in enforcement, even in arrest and seizure, lahat po yan kailangan sundin natin para hindi rin po tayo ma-technical pagdating ng pagsampa ng kaso.
Malacanang says it's the president's discretion to end the guessing game and name the cocaine user. Trisha Terada, CNN Philippines.
The Commission on Elections reiterates substance abuse is not among the grounds for disqualifying an aspirant. A drug test for them is also not required under the law. Commission spokesperson James Jimenez explains the poll body in a resolution required candidates to submit a negative drug test several elections ago, but that was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 2008. Now, they're the so-called DDS or diehard Duterte supporters who have been fighting tooth and nail for President Duterte since 2016 until today. But now that there are two Dutertes joining the national race, the patriarch and the presidential daughter, where does that leave the DDS? Our senior correspondent David Santos spoke to some of them.
In this community in Mandaluyong City, it is not difficult to spot a supporter of President Duterte. They are among the 16 million who voted him to power in 2016. And while they have been loyalists for nearly 6 years, they are, however, eyeing a new leader to support come 2022, Bongbong Marcos.
Gusto ko maiba naman, mabago talaga.
Kahit sino naman ganin mo, kay Bongbong na talaga ngayon papanig eh.
Gawin niya nga katulad sa tatay niya, maoki ang Pilipinas.
Online, we spoke to another group of Duterte supporters. This time, they are sticking it out with the president, meaning they will back his endorsement of Senator Bongo.
Kasi siya lang talaga yung nakita naming senador na bumaba sa lahat ng nasunugan. So hindi ka plastikan yun.
If ever na may papasok na iba, panigurado mag-iiba yung setup, direksyon.
So ngayon lang po nagkagulo kasi nga po nandyan si Mayor Inday, nandyan si President Duterte. So kaya po nagkakagulo, meron pong undecided.
For days now, pro-Duterte chat groups and social media pages have been abuzz with exchanges on who will they support for president. Will it be Go, backed by the father, or Marcos, the daughter's running mate?
Wala po talagang awayan. Meron lang pong nakikipag-away doon sa social media pero hindi naman po namin pinapansin.
The bigger question is the Duterte powerhouse now a house divided? For political analyst Michael Yusinko, the Duterte supporters to begin with are not as solid as they seem to be.
It was made up of different factions, different groups, and therefore, with different agendas, with different interests, they are in that stage of what's happening? What's happening? Where will we go? So they're waiting for that clear direction.
This apparent division, Yusinko says, won't necessarily mean an advantage for other presidential candidates, but it somehow levels the playing field.
Karambola politics na tayo sa 2022, di ba? It's anybody's ball game.
But with still over 5 months before the elections, Duterte supporters say anything can still happen and that something might still be up on the Duterte sleeves. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
President Duterte thumbs down a possible coalition between his party and the Lakas CMD of his daughter, Mayor Sara Duterte. Mr. Duterte says it will not happen because that will mean his party will also be allied with Marcos. The president called Marcos a weak leader, a spoiled child, and an only son. Now, the COMELEC looking to regulate the use of social media during the 2022 campaign period. The platform is seen to be largely tapped to avoid COVID-19 super spread events in face-to-face gatherings. Starting February, the poll body will be lending its official social media pages for so-called e-rallies, where national candidates may air their events on a rotating basis. Now, those vying for the presidency and vice presidency may air content worth 10 minutes at a time, while senatorial bets and party list groups can secure slots worth 3 minutes long. The order of airing will be raffled off. Candidates and political parties must register with the COMELEC, their websites, and the links to all official social media accounts and blogs that they will be using for the campaign. Social media firms like Facebook are also asked to submit data about online ads paid for by the candidates, parties, or their donors. Candidates are still limited to the same rules on campaign spending. Presidential and vice presidential bets can spend 10 pesos per voter, or approximately 669 million pesos during the campaign season. based on COMELEC's estimated number of registered voters. The limit is at 3 pesos per voter for all other candidates with a political party and 5 pesos for every voter for those running as independents. For physical sorties, parties must secure permits from the local governments where the event will be held, and strict COVID-19 health protocols must be enforced at all times. The COMELEC condemns the killing of an acting poll officer in the town of Lope de Vega in northern Samar. Based on initial investigations, James Diaz Maghanoy was gunned down by 2 unidentified men in Catarman while on his way home from work on Thursday afternoon. The 42-year-old victim sustained 2 gunshot wounds, including one in the head, before he died in the hospital. The motive behind the killing remains unclear. The COMELEC is now calling on authorities to leave no stone unturned in its probe into the murder and to ensure that those responsible are swiftly brought to justice. Up ahead, an official from the Health Department reminds the public only certain sectors can get COVID-19 booster shots for now. Some sectors call on the government, or some groups call on the government to step up against Beijing's aggression in the West Philippine Sea after a Chinese Coast Guard vessel blocked and water cannoned 2 Philippine supply boats in Ayungin Shoal. Details when we return.
Na ang best tasting chicken daw kay TJ rin? Walang duda na ang tender, ang juicy, best tasting chicken hotdog talaga. Chicken ang desisyon. Kids can tell, best tasting ang TJ Chicken Dog.
It's always The same team will return to Ayungin Shoal. In the meantime, a maritime law expert says China's intention is clear on Ayungin Shoal.
They've always wanted the Philippines to leave Ayungin Shoal, no? And tow away the Sierra Madre. Tagal ng pinag-iinitan yan. In 2013 to 2014, after the standoff sa Scarborough Shoal, Ayungin Shoal became the focus of their attention. Talagang pinag-initan nila. If they cannot interfere directly with, say, the Navy or Air Force, what they're trying to do now is to starve the outposts essentially so that they will be the ones to voluntarily leave. No? And pag umalis na tayo, then that's the time that for sure papasukin nila yung shoal and they will take over.
Other experts point out the gap between China's diplomacy and what is happening on the ground. Former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario says the country should take the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling to the next level, which means exploring options to enforce it. A joint patrol with other allied countries must be considered. The Ayungin Shoal incident happened shortly after the Philippines and United States wrapped up a bilateral strategic dialogue which included addressing concerns on peace and stability and commitment to further improve the Mutual Defense Treaty. Due to the new and emerging threats in the South China Sea, the United States and the Philippines will be holding a maritime dialogue in 2022 to further strengthen the Mutual Defense Treaty between the two countries. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
Facing 6 sex trafficking charges in the United States, Davao-based religious leader and spiritual advisor to President Duterte, Apollo Kibuloy, has been accused of threatening underage girls and other young women of eternal punishment should they refuse to engage in sexual acts with him. A sex trafficking scheme in his religious group reportedly took place from 2002 until at least 2018. The legal counsel of the group he founded released a statement denying the claims. They called the charges, quote, another vicious attempt to bring down Pastor Apollo Kibuloy. Presidential spokesperson Carlo Nograles said the country will cooperate if they receive requests for Kibuloy's extradition. Cebu City Mayor Edgardo Labella died earlier today. He was 70 years old. His son confirmed the cause of death was septic shock or dangerous drop in blood pressure because of an infection. Labella was hospitalized for 23 days, suffering from pneumonia. The family said they are making plans for a public viewing under COVID-19 protocols. Labella previously served as Cebu City's vice mayor for 2 terms. Still on Newsnight, superstar singer Adele releases her first album in nearly 6 years, and singer Harry Styles is joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We get a sneak peek of his role as the brother of Thanos. We'll be right back.
Love is all about time. Di minamadali ang pagpapasarap. Like the love in every Pure Foods ready-to-eat. Slow-cooked and ready in 8 minutes. Para may time ka sa mga mahal mo. Because love takes time.
Kabilang ba kayo sa mga Pilipino na nahihirapan sa mga transaksyon dahil wala o kulang ang mga valid IDs?
Huwag nang mag-alala dahil narito na po ang PhilSys, ang identification system ng bawat Pilipino.
Para sa Step 1 registration, pumunta lang sa register.philsys.gov.ph para makapag-register sa PhilSys online. Ito ang PhilSys, ID natin to.
Discovery Plus is here. Welcome to your new home of larger-than-life entertainment and unforgettable characters. Subscribe now at 129 pesos per month.
Namamas ka po! This Christmas, we may not be celebrating the way we used to because of the ongoing pandemic. But there is still a lot to be grateful for. And definitely a lot of ways we can share the Christmas spirit with others.
Ngayong Pasko, bukod sa paghahanda natin ng salo-salo sa sarili nating tahanan, samahan niyo po kami ni Isa na mag-sponsor ng iba pang pamilya para sa kanilang Pure Foods Noche Buena. Mula sa halagang 800 pesos, maaari na tayong magbahagi ng Pure Foods Fiesta Ham, Tender Juicy Hotdog, TJ Spaghetti Sauce.
Your new favorite viands are also now made ready to eat by Pure Foods. Crispy fried chicken, caldereta, kare-kare, and many more. Your Noche Buena can be ready in as little as 15 minutes.
Wow!
Ang bilis!
Isang kompleto at masayang pagdiriwang ng Noche Buena ang naghihintay para sa inyo at para sa pamilyang reregaluhan ninyo ng Pure Foods Noche Buena Pack.
Ito ay mahahanap sa San Miguel Foods website. Magtungo sa thehub.sanmiguel.com.ph. Let us continue the spirit of Christmas giving so more of us can celebrate the season.
Sama-sama po tayong magdiwang ng Pasko! Buo ang Pasko sa Paskong Pure Foods!
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Harry Styles' entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe is official. Take a look at his new character poster. The award-winning singer plays Eros, the brother of supervillain Thanos. Audiences were initially surprised at Styles' appearance in the star-studded movie Eternals, with his cameo revealed at the very last minute. But a month after the film's premiere, Marvel finally shows off his part as the Royal Prince of Titan. New releases from music legends Adele and Sting and a documentary about a Beach Boy are in today's Hollywood Minute. CNN's Rick Damigella has the stories.
Adele's new album is out now. 30 is the fourth studio recording from the British singer-songwriter. The music video for the single Easy on Me has surpassed 163 million views since it premiered on YouTube in October.
Jumped out of bed this morning with a smile upon my face.
Also just released is Sting's new album, The Bridge, featuring this tune, If It's Love, which marks the first time Sting has whistled in a song.
I define a hit song when people are whistling it, like window cleaners or people painting houses or cab drivers. When they're whistling your song, that's a hit. That's a real hit. So I thought I'd bypass the whole thing and start whistling myself. And I haven't done it on record before, so it's quite a revelation to me as well.
The idea of doing an interview makes Brian nervous.
Rolling Stone editor Jason Fine came up with a clever way to make Brian Wilson feel more comfortable during interviews for the documentary Brian Wilson Long Promised Road. Driving, talking, and listening to music.
For me, I mean, driving around LA with Brian is just a great, good time. We just have a good time listening to music and telling stories, talking about our families a lot.
Right.
That must have been a really exciting time.
It was. The film is out now in theaters and on VOD. In Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
30 has since gotten rave reviews from critics, and hashtag Adele topped Philippine Twitter trends less than an hour after the album's release. We have 36 more days before Christmas, and that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Let's kick off today's episode with hearty dishes here in Wholesome Meals Better Life. Now, the next half hour is filled with healthy, delicious, and so easy to prepare meals for the whole family. I'm Christine Jacob Sandejas, and this program is brought to you by San Miguel Corporation. As moms, you know there's nothing more special than preparing food for your family, and that's why today we'll show you how you can have a family feast right at the comfort of
Does your stomach feel full, tight, or swollen after a meal? Chances are you're probably bloated. Bloating causes the belly to look larger than usual, and it may also feel tender or even painful. It has a lot to do with what you eat and how quickly you eat. On today's program, we'll talk about why and when bloating happens. We want to help you better understand the care you need and deserve. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Bloating can get in the way of work or day-to-day activities, and it's common among both children as well as adults. To talk about this and more, let's welcome our guests. With us is Dr. Eric Yasay. He's a gastroenterologist and clinical associate professor at the UP-PGH. Also with us is Dr. Maricar Escultor-Can. She's an internal medicine specialist and clinical nutritionist from the Makati Medical Center. Now, gas is the most common cause of bloating. It builds up in the digestive tract when you inhale air or when undigested food breaks down. I'll start the discussion first with Dr. Eric. Dr. Eric, what are the causes of increased gasiness? Yung mga common causes nito?
Well, yung bloating nga can represent increased gas production in our body. In the vernacular, it is more commonly described as kabag, empacho, or hindi natunawan. So pinakamadalas, bloatedness or the sensation of feeling of fullness occurs after eating or a drinking spree kapag ka napainom ng marami or nakakain ng madami yung mga pasyente natin. It is caused because of increased acid production and gas formation when our body starts to digest food. No? So yun yung mga most common. And then other than that, of course, we also think about decrease clearance of gas or kung mabagal yung paglabas ng gas sa ating digestive system or kung may blockage dun sa digestive system. These things can either increase your gas production or decrease your clearance of gas in your GI tract.
So is it mainly that? Ganun ba kasimple na pagpapalit mo lang ng bilis ng pagkain? Will this be able to alleviate bloating?
Most commonly, nalipasan niya ng gutom or walang time kumain. That's why ang bilis nating kumain. And sometimes kapag bumabawi, yan yung tinatawag ko sometimes to my patients, actually is the reason why you produce more gas because you have to put out more acid and digest food, and then that will give you more gas than more than the speed of eating per se. And then, of course, kapag nagmamadali, you tend to eat in gulps, so mas madami yung nasaswallow na air. So that can also add to that.
But you may also be feeling more bloated than usual these days, and the latest culprit is, of course, stress. Ngayon, Dr. Maricar, paano ba nagkakos ng bloating ang stress? Halos lahat ng tao, very stressful nowadays.
Okay, so usually when we are stressed, diba, we tend to seek foods that are salty or sugary, no? Sometimes referred to as your comfort food. So it is another contributory factor to bloatedness, which is the character of the food. So if you will eat foods that are high in sugar and salt, but low in fiber, such as highly processed foods, because they can slow down the transit of the food in the GI tract. So also, when you eat these processed foods, you tend to drink carbonated sodas also, di ba, yung soft drinks, or some people, sparkling water. So these drinks are infused with carbon dioxide that can aggravate actually the bloatedness.
But I'd like to talk about cigarettes naman and how this affects not just your stomach or bloatedness, but the entire body. Because when smoke is inhaled, it also enters the stomach and it goes through the blood system. The elements of the cigarette goes all the way around the body, and it can cause bloating. Now, my question is, Dr. Maricar, how does cigarettes affect someone's bloatedness?
So perhaps I think it has something to do with the inhaled air that causes the bloatedness whenever a person smokes.
Now, I'd like to talk to Dr. Eric. What other factors do Filipinos commonly do that can contribute to bloating?
Well, madami tayong habits, no, as Filipinos. So we are very fond of buffets. No, well, probably the pandemic has decreased that episodes of buffets, but our eating styles and habits actually can add to the risk of developing bloating. So, madalas tayo nagpapalipas ng gutom when we're busy, and then we overcompensate by eating a lot after when we have time to eat. And then, yun nga, takot tayong magutom Yan yung culture natin So that's why we tend to eat more than we should, and that causes bloating.
Fiber is essential for a healthy diet, and it's best known for its ability to prevent or relieve constipation. But high-fiber food can cause some to produce excessive amounts of gas, causing bloating. Dr. Maricar, what are some examples sa mga pagkain na mataas ang fiber?
Some clues to look for if you want to choose high-fiber food items. So when you see the word whole grain, whole wheat, and bran, whenever you choose your bread, your rice, or your cereal. So that means that you are choosing high fiber options. In terms of fresh fruits naman, I advise them to choose the fruits that are pulpy or those that are usually eaten with the skin, such as your apples, or fruits with fibrous flesh, such as your pineapples and your mangoes. So for the vegetables naman, they are usually your leafy greens. And of course, you also have your nuts and seeds, which are also included in your high fiber list.
Now, how does light exercise naman after eating? How can this help reduce that feeling of bloatedness for some people? Now, a lot of people might think exercise, when they think of exercise, it's something really rigid. But a light walk, a short walk, is this a simple activity with a lot of benefits?
Yes, actually, when you do physical activities, such even kumbaga short walks around the block, it can stimulate movement of your bowels, which can facilitate the movement of the trapped air. So it can be helpful.
A lot of our viewers say that ginger naman is also said to reduce bloating. Is there any truth to this, Maricar? Marami bang benefits ang ginger in the form of maybe tea to help those who have frequent bloating episodes after eating?
Actually, I come across 2 studies relating ginger and bloatedness. So basically, the mechanism is that ginger aids in speeding the emptying of the stomach, as well as relieving patients who have functional dyspepsia. So that's the population of the patient that they investigated. But for these studies, what they used are ginger capsules. So the dose is at 1 to 1.5 gram in divided doses per day were used. So the authors of the study also included in the conclusion that ginger tea, so ginger in the form of tea, may also offer similar benefits, but they were not able to do a study using the tea.
Dr. Eric, meron ba kayong mga tips para sa mga viewers para mas ma-minimize ang kanilang feeling of bloatedness pagkatapos nilang kumain?
Apart from small frequent feedings, so wag kumain ng sobrang dami. Tama yung sinabi ni Dr. Maricar, to walk, because the pull of gravity can help bring down the food to the lower parts of the GI tract. Yung iba kong sinasabi to my patients would be to do a food diary. So what is a food diary? It's a list of food of your triggers. Very important yung food diary because the triggers are different from person to person. So hindi naman pwedeng diktahan natin na ito yung one size fits all, na ito yung kakainin at hindi. What actually is more useful is a person to do his or her personal food diary of food triggers so that ito yung mga iiwasan ng food.
Now, bloating is not always from eating too much or too fast, as earlier mentioned, but sometimes there could be a health issue behind it. We'll talk about this and more when we come back. We're together in health. Bloating is usually normal, but it can also be something serious. How will we know if it's just a nuisance or a cause for concern? I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines, where your care comes first. Dr. Eric, what are some of the medical conditions that may cause bloating?
The other conditions that can cause bloating would be mechanical conditions. Ibig sabihin, pag may bara sa digestive tract. No? So this happens when you have inflammation of your GI tract or if you have tumors of your GI tract. Like for example, if you have colon cancer, the gas gets trapped inside at hindi makababa yung gas doon and you will feel bloatedness. So another condition would be what we call paralysis of the GI tract. No, we call it ileus scientifically. No, pero a lot of patients who are bedridden, who suffer the stroke, who have severe infections or uncontrolled diabetes will have a slowdown of the movement of the GI tract. Kaya natatrap din yung air inside. No? So these are just some of the medical conditions that have explanations.
Now, a person with food intolerance has a difficulty digesting certain foods. And this is different from a food allergy, which results from an immune system reaction to a specific food. Dr. Maricar, how can a person tell if their bloating is caused by food intolerance?
So actually, there are tests that we can do. I refer my patients for them to have the food intolerance test, so which is actually a blood test wherein the patient's blood will be extracted and then it will be analyzed if they have an intolerance to certain food items. So usually there's a panel of food lists and then food items are interpreted if they should be eliminated or they can be eaten in moderation by the patient or they can continue to consume these certain food items.
We've been talking about bloating for a while, but a lot of people, when they hear about bloating, they also may associate it, especially women, during the part of their menstrual cycle. Dr. Maricar, is this the same thing? How can a woman tell if it's bloating or weight gain?
Okay, so that's a very challenging question, but perhaps I think the best way to determine if the bloating is just caused by hormonal etiology is to observe if it is associated with other symptoms of your premenopausal symptoms such as mood changes, any discomfort that you feel in the hypogastric area.
Meron bang mga gamot na pwedeng regularly tinitake ng mga tao that may cause bloating?
Yes, so madami talaga. So very common dyan would be your pain relievers. No? So syempre, of course, a lot of them would be over the counter and our patients will not know na these medications actually decrease the protections that we have against acid. Examples of this would be aspirin, mefenamic acid, celecoxib, diclofenac, naproxen. Yan. Very, very common yan sa amin to see patients with that. And then the other medications that sometimes are over the counter and are abused would be the medications against diarrhea. Of course, di ba kapag ka may diarrhea ka, mabilis yung paghilab ng tiyan mo, you want to stop that. No? So that's why you take Buscopan or Imodium or loperamide. No? So this naman has the side effect of paralyzing your GI tract and then hence trapping air and causing bloatedness.
Okay, so temporary bloating shouldn't be a cause or worry, but anyone with bloating accompanied by other symptoms should see a doctor. When we come back, what else can you do about your bloating concerns? Stay with us. Your health is our mission. In most cases, the symptoms of bloating can be prevented by adopting a few healthy lifestyle changes. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're your connection to healthcare. Swallowing air can be one reason why you're bloating, and there are a number of things that you can also avoid. And one of those we've been talking about is carbonated drinks, for example. Dr. Maricar, we've been talking about carbonated drinks, bawal ito, high salt, high sugary foods. What else? What other common foods do Filipinos eat na nakakapag-contribute sa bloating?
Actually, isa sa hindi namin na-mention kanina, yung chewing of gum. Usually, it also causes bloatedness because when you chew gum, you also swallow air. Eating in a rush. So, yun, kumbaga contributory din, which I think it was already mentioned na rin kanina.
Okay. Now, when it comes to home remedies, Dr. Maricar, meron ba kayong masasuggest sa mga viewers for those who feel simple bloating for that matter? Is there something at home that they can do to relieve that sensation?
Okay. So aside from the dietary factors which we have already discussed, so some experts may also recommend to do certain exercises, di ba? Even at home. Kasi even if we encourage the patient to walk, it's difficult with our current restrictions. Okay, so there are some experts who say that there are certain yoga poses that the person can do to facilitate the relaxation of the hips and lower back, to facilitate the release of the gas that build up in the colon. So there are also abdominal massages that can be done. So usually it is done in a circular clockwise motion, starting from the right anterior hip bone, going up across the rib cage, and then down to the left anterior hip bone and across the hypogastric area or the Puson area. So you can do circular motions. But I would just like to remind that if you will do these exercises, at least give your stomach a time to empty. So that usually takes mga 2 to 3 hours. So if after that interval, you still feel uncomfortable and you still feel that there is trapped air in your tummy, so you can try to do these maneuvers at home.
Okay, very good advice. First time I heard of those exercises. I'm going to try that next time I feel bloated. Now, Dr. Eric, the whole point of trying to relieve the symptoms of bloating is try to let the gas out, try to release that gas. But are there medications that you prescribe your patients who have a more difficult time, those with bloating sensations that last for more than 2 to 3 hours?
We first try to analyze what causes the bloating. So if it's hyperacidity, we give antacids, or and acid suppressants. So if there's a motility problem, ibig sabihin hindi gumagalaw talaga yung bituka, we can give prokinetics. So some of this would be, our viewers will be more familiar with Plasil, like metoclopramide and domperidone, or Motilium. So these are just some of the medications that can make your GI tract move. Others would be yung mga antispasm naman. This would be, of course, relying on a diagnosis. So it's very important na before you self-medicate, you try to analyze first kung ano talaga yung nararamdaman, especially if you have alarm symptoms na bumabara yung bituka.
Dr. Maricar, before we go, do you have any advice for our viewers with regards to the proper diet or what kind of diet para ma-minimize naman ang bloating?
We usually recommend talaga an individualized diet approach. Okay, so we emphasize that there is no one-size-fits-all diet. We can give you the general recommendations as we have mentioned earlier. But if you want a more tailor-fit or customized diet, so you can keep a food diary and then you can consult a registered nutritionist dietitian. You can show them the food diary so that they can prepare a good diet plan that is appropriate based on your condition.
And Dr. Eric, any parting words or advice for our viewers when it comes to minimizing bloatedness?
Well, ako, siguro probably aside from stopping smoking would be your food habits. So be aware that we want small frequent feedings. Don't skip your meals. Yan naman yung usual advice. And then of course, when you develop alarm symptoms, seek consult right away.
And we're glad you could have joined us here on Med Talk Health Talk. Thank you, gastroenterologist Dr. Eric Yasay and clinical nutritionist Dr. Maricar Esculto-Can. Bloating is rarely a symptom of something serious. For most people, the remedy is simple. Control portion sizes, eat less fats, and eat slow enough, as well as stop smoking. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're here to help build a healthier future for you.